What's crap lapping? Ooh, gonna talk about a crazy subject here, but gonna get into a couple, but gonna talk about Bruce Lee and his son Brandon Lee. Here's the thing, all right. Bruce Lee died all mysteriously, but they could never prove it was death. It's more, you know, regular people who don't like to wrap their minds too deep in anything would just say, oh, it was an aneurysm or something from the guy fighting all the time. But if you study up on Bruce Lee at all, it seems like he made a lot of enemies. He had enemies foreign and domestic. You know what I'm saying? For real. He just ruffled a lot of feathers. And he had hate coming from the intelligence agency. I read this book about this guy. It's called Martial Musings. Something like that. But this dude was in the OSS. It's like a predecessor to the CIA, I think. And this dude, he talks about his lifetime study of Kung Fu. But anyway, and he was hating on Bruce Lee, saying he's a fraud and a charlatan. So, I mean, he was catching, there was a reason for that. I don't know exactly what it was, but that's just something to bring into consideration. But what I'm going to go into here is alright, there's the movie, the last movie I think he was filming on was The Game of Death. In The Game of Death, he gets, basically, the theme is basically someone's trying to put the squeeze on him into doing something, joining someone, signing some contract, something. And basically the dude, he goes, my buddy down in Detroit, they're into, and he goes, rock and roll. You know what I'm saying? He throws up the Baphomet. Bam, right in this movie, dude. You know what I'm saying? Ancient 1970s or something. You know what I'm saying? But he was throwing up the Baphomet. And in this movie, Bruce Lee, actually, this movie only has 11 minutes of footage of actually Bruce Lee. The rest of it was chopped and cut up and put into pieces, okay? So, that, basically, okay, in the movie, there's a scene where it's supposed to be fake bullets, but somehow real bullets get in the gun. And they kill Bruce Lee. Okay. So that's in this movie. It's pretty decent movie, by the way. But anyway, Brandon Lee, The Crow. That was a dude. This movie was gangster. I loved that movie back in the day, dude. But that movie, watching it now, when I didn't know half the shit when I was a kid, man. But yeah, dude. Actually, Brandon Lee was doing that parkour all up in The Crow, man. That movie was bad, but it's weird, man, because you can see, man, that was like it was like he was a sacrifice. You could see it through the whole thing. It was a sacrifice. But anyway, in The Crow, okay, the part when he's in the pawn shop, look on the clock. It says 9/11 right before it blows up. And there's a spot where there's this overpass and it's got the compass square on it. And if you look at the apartment where he got thrown out the window, it's an all-seeing eye. Let me think. Death, rebirth. That's all death out of chaos, or order out of chaos, basically. You know what I'm saying? Big time in that movie. You got the secret cabal of people. And that scene where he's fighting the corporate, the street corporate thugs. You know what I'm saying? Here's the thing, dude. They say that the head of gangs are basically, they call them, they're like CEOs. They're like corporatists. They're like fascists. But anyway, back to this sacrifice. It was obvious watching that in retrospect, seeing all this stuff, doing all this studying. that he was groomed as a sacrifice. Okay, so boom. And another thing. Okay, here's the thing: death. Death in show business equals money, because whoever dies, all their stuff they've ever done, all of a sudden gets a big pickup. So I mean, it's profitable to take people out sometimes, like Biggie Smalls, for instance. Taking him out made all whoever had rights to all the stuff of his made them rich. And Pac, same thing. He knew he was gonna get smoked somehow. Like he was just getting the vibes that someone was going to take him out. So he made all this music to come out after he died. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, they probably learned this from Elvis. But it seems like there's something going on where they got generational sacrifices, same family line. But let me think. Like for instance, you got Bruce, Brandon, you got Kennedy assassination, and then you got his son who mysteriously died in some weird plane crash. You know that was orchestrated. I mean, personally, my opinion, that was some kind of weird sacrifice. I mean, there's too many people in his family died to not be a coincidence. Uh, but then recently you just had Whitney Houston, and then her daughter die in exactly the same manner. And then even they had her hanging around for a while. You know what I'm saying? Which is, it was some kind of weird ritual. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking, it's kind of like, all right, listen, in back in the day in Egyptian times, when Pharaoh passed, they sacrificed a bunch of his servants with him to serve them in the afterlife. Maybe this is something to do with it. I also am privy to maybe that people might believe in reincarnation, and that they're going to be reborn a new creature, so they do this one last great performance and then take their own life. I mean, there's seems like there's something to that. Like it's like a ritual to do with Hamlet, I think. So one of